I'll just get a couple of things ready. So we'll be
Sure.
streaming
I'll
this
be on
as
the
well.
call. Yeah.
We'll be streaming this as well. And, I know that there are few people who are not actually able to join in via Zoom, and they've requested me to actually have this streamed across to them.
Okay.
One of
No
them
worries.
happens to also be, an engineering school in Durgapur. So
Okay.
they have sort of also wanted to get an insight, because a lot of their students have also expressed an interest, and they said, okay, if you can put it across on YouTube, then what they'll do is they'll shoot it out, to the entire class over there. So that's also been
Sure. Absolutely. No worries.
via Zoom, and they've requested me to actually have. Great. So I think we can take it forward in that case. So welcome everybody to the session that we have. We have a wonderful session for you today. And my name is Michael, and I represent EduAims. So EduAims is a study abroad and overseas education consultancy that focuses on helping candidates take career decisions related to what they would want to do in future, and of course helping them walk the path along the way. So today we have with us Adrit, who's also a part of EduAims, and Adrit's had a multitude of experiences across academic as well as professional domains. So he's pursued his education at some of the finest institutions, and that has allowed him to acquire a very wide range of perspectives and skill sets. To give you a little bit of background about him, so he's completed his bachelor's from St. Xavier's College. So we share common, alma mater that ways. And he subsequently went on to do a master's from the ISB Business School in Barcelona. He then went on to also complete his MBA after a few years of working from the prestigious Indian School of Business. And in the professional sphere, he comes with a little more than 5 years of experience across multiple industries, be it from public relations to FMCG to e-commerce. And he's worked across functions such as branding, marketing, operations, retail, strategy. All of those experiences is what he brings with him. So welcome, Adrit. Thank you so much for taking out the time on a Saturday afternoon, joining us, and thanks to all the attendees also for basically coming on board through Zoom, through YouTube, joining us over here today for this wonderful session. Adit, I think, the way we can start this off is because the summary of the talk is about navigating the business school application process, and you bring with yourself a very special kind of expertise, since you've done it twice, not just once in terms of a master's, but also later on in terms of an MBA. So, if you could just highlight some of the key points that normally individuals who navigating the process for the first time, maybe they miss, or things that they need to look for that will save them a lot of time. And if you could just shed some light on that, we could take it forward from there.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you everyone who's joined. It's a very kind introduction. I'll just directly deep dive into the question that you asked. And in all honesty, that is like the one question that I kept asking myself whenever I was in the midst of applying for a B school. As you rightly said, I've done it twice already for two different schools. However, in every attempt, I was applying to multiple schools together. And then, of course, you shortlist the one which is for you. And this is my experience. What I have kind of realized is the way to navigate through these application is, in all honesty, navigating through yourself. It's a very introspective process. The entire process of applying to a B school, the essays, the applications, they're designed in such a way such that the B schools get to know your entire profile as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how the various questions are also accordingly designed. And you'll see, depending on the school that you're applying to, the questions would differ. The basic preliminary question will remain, but the objective behind that question would change. So it's very important for you to, there are two things actually. One, introspect and get to know yourself in terms of what you have done before that point, because you have done a lot. However, we have a kind of tendency where we tend to either underestimate ourselves or we tend to forget the minute nuances of a lot of things that we have done, which we could actually put it out there and showcase it to the admission counselor. Because at the end of the day, it is marketing yourself, but more importantly, how I would like to put it, it's telling your story. And who knows your story better than you? So that's why the introspection is very important. And secondly, is to get to know the school like the back of your hand. Whichever school or schools you want to apply to, spend a lot of time in researching about the school, why you want to do that particular curriculum or that degree. What does the school offer that a school B does not offer? You can very well go to a school B or a C or a D, but why you want to go to this particular school A only? There will definitely be points of differences, just as there will be points of parity, but you have to filter them down. Second, that. And third, from a very school point of view, try to get an understanding of the alums and the professors that are associated with the school, because in all honesty, that is the secret sauce. And that is a big point of differentiator between that school and any other school. So your research has to be on point. So by combining these two, you would actually arrive at your, as they say, the essay or the application.
I think that's really, really insightful. I mean, at the first question itself, talking about the kind of introspection that's needed from a candidate's end. And I've also often, come across students and candidates, and you can't, of course, blame anybody for thinking that there may be one shot or one formula that can be followed. But the truth is that the applications are designed for getting to know every candidate individually and personally. And probably the best thing that can be done is to be as authentic as possible, to really highlight the kind of skills and expertise that somebody would bring to the table. I really like how you brought up about getting to know the alum and getting to know the professors or the individuals involved in the AdCom. I mean, I would like to share an experience also. We have even worked with a few candidates in the past who've had what you would call by general standards, according to a lot of people, not very strong profiles, maybe extremely low GPAs, extremely poor, standardized test scores. And purely by getting to know alum, talking to them, reaching out to them, connecting with them, building that rapport, they were in a way, I would say, able to hack into the whole applications process. So that's absolutely very insightful overall. Another question that I get a lot from students is about the test scores. I think everybody's so worried about the test scores. Everybody's always thinking ki are ye GMAT hoga, GRE hoga. People give it, they get good scores on their mocks. Sometimes they don't manage to get a higher score. And then a very pertinent question on the back of that is, let's say if I have something like a 650 or a 660 on the GMAT, as an example, and I'm able to apply in round one, is it worth waiting, let's say a month and a half, and going to round two or round three if I have the chance of maybe going to a 700 plus? Or do you go with a 650 in round one itself? So if you could just talk to us a little bit about the importance of these test scores and how they fit into the whole application system, and whether people should take it earlier or later, and how they can put across. And I think that will really help the viewers learn a lot from that.
Sure, absolutely. So the test score, the GMAT, GRE, or whichever tests you want to give to get into your school of choice, it's always the white elephant in the room. And in all honesty, since I've done it twice, but in both the situations, I have overhyped it. And this I'm telling you very honestly, because the kind of environment that we are in terms of the education system that we are in, it kind of teaches you to put a lot of emphasis on marks, the number. So that is something that you have actually been brought up with, and over 10, 12 years of schooling, it has been ingrained in your system. That marks is what defines you from an academic angle at least. Now, the interesting bit is all these schools that you want to apply to abroad or via the GMAT or any of the processes, they look at the entire profile and not just your marks. So here is the conundrum. Okay, once you get into the GMAT mode or application mode, you always feel, okay, I think my marks is going to be the be it and end all, because of course that is how things have been. But that's not true. The truth is that your entire profile is devaluated, and your GMAT or test score is only one part of it. Having said that, a lot of people, what they do is they take these words on face value. When I say that GMAT is or your test score is only a part of it, I do not mean even for a second ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not correct. You have to work towards ensuring that that particular bucket is also full. By full, I mean you perform to the best of your ability, because you, as I said in the beginning, you know your profile best. I'll give you my example. Without speaking generically, I'll give you a very specific example. When I was applying to the Indian School of Business, I had already gone through the entire process of introspection and everything. And I realized that I need a good score to get into this institute. Does that mean that a lot of my peers who were in the institute all were like 700, 750 plus? No. There were students with 650, 660,
Right.
etc., and who had a very good profile, and they have got it. No two ways about it. But I felt, given I know my profile, if I do well in GMAT, which is about 700 plus, if I reach, then I'll be in a comfortable position to focus completely on my profile, and there's a high chance of getting that interview call. So that kind of clarity you should have basis your understanding of yourself, not your competition of peers, yourself. So when I actually went ahead and gave my GMAT for the first time for the English School of Business, I scored about 630, okay, which I knew that basis the profile that I have, and this no one was telling me by the way. It's only based on my introspection. There's a very high chance of me not getting an interview call, because the competition would be really high. Secondly, my profile at that point, however I had crafted it, it wasn't standing out to such an extent that, okay, even with a score such as this, given that the average is about 700, I would get it. So I attempted the GMAT again the second time in a matter of 15 days. And I was, in 15 days, all I did was I just gave exams. Just exams. Because that was the thing I did not do in the first attempt. Because I was always scared, because exams actually show you the real picture. Yeah. So I was trying to avoid it as much as possible. I did. I wrote quite a few, 2-3 exams, but it wasn't as much as it should be. But after I got a reality check, the 15 days, I just gave exams, nothing else. And after 15 days, I think 15 or 20 days later, I gave the GMAT again and I scored a 730. So when I reached that score, I realized, okay, this is my profile. Now I'm going to get an interview call. Now here's another interesting bit. A lot of people think that once you get the interview call, that's the end goal. But no, your end goal is to get into the institute. And this is where I would like to answer your second question, as in where you asked whether you should give the GMAT beforehand, after, along with the profile. You should give the GMAT as soon as possible to get that out of the way. Then you have to focus on your profile as much as possible. Because what you actually give in your essay or your application to the school, that is what you will be tested on in terms of the interviewing on the day when you get the shortlist. And your aim is not to get a shortlist for an interview. Your aim is to get into that school. So you have to put a lot of effort and a lot of focus on the profile. So as soon as you can get the GMAT cleared, or that out of the way, so to speak, you can focus on one thing. Otherwise, what happens is the interesting bit of a GMAT is like, unlike a school exam, the date is in your hand.
Yeah.
So you can choose. And how we are programmed, we always think, Acha, if I get 1 more week now, I'll do better. If I get 3 more days now, I'll do better. So you keep postponing to a point where you start doing your profile building and your GMAT in tandem. You don't have time. And that is where a lot of people kind of falter, because in all honesty, you do not have that much of bandwidth to put into these two things simultaneously. So it's always advisable to complete your GMAT as soon as possible, book that date and work backwards and focus on your profile.
That's, I mean, a couple of really interesting points, First, the personal example which you brought up, about going from a 6:30 to a 7:30 in a matter of 15 days, and how initially you were sort of, in a way, avoiding taking tests because, of course, there's that taking tests are good. I mean, it can't really do any harm because, you get a reality check, where you stand. But then it's a psychological thing again. You take a test, acha score nahi aayi, you get demotivated,
Yeah.
How do you feel? And I think the way we are actually built is to run away from that feeling of rejection, that feeling of things not working out. But, going head on into that feeling of rejection at the mock side is better than ultimately getting rejected, in the true application. So, I also think it was a bit courageous and something that's very, counterintuitive about the fact that you decided not to prep for a long duration again, but rather to give it in 15 days. Sometimes when students I've seen prepare for the test and then they get good scores in the mocks also, and they go ahead and give the test, they get a score. Then they think, okay, the score hasn't come out very well. Maybe I need another 2 months of preparation. Maybe I need another 3 months of prep. But you took a call of basically giving the test within 15 days after giving a lot of several mocks back to back. And I think that's also something that, speaks to how you have to introspect, you have to understand whether you've done preparation or whether you need more preparation. If you don't need more preparation, obviously the mocks are something that would help considerably. And then coming to the second point, about juggling too many things, juggling the GRE or the GMAT and juggling, let's say, the applications. And I would like to bring out to the viewers over here that normally when you're preparing for the GMAT and you also want to juggle the applications, these are not the only two things you juggle. You might have work as well.
Yeah,
you might have,
absolutely.
college, or, depending on whatever stage you are in life, there's normally one more thing that you're doing. So it's still fair enough to think that, okay, let me juggle my prep and the applications together if you're not doing anything else at all. But 95% of everybody would end up doing, maybe having college examinations or having work commitments. And at that point of time, juggling all of them together can become really, really difficult. So I think it's good advice to sort of get that GMAT out of the way, finish it off as soon as possible so that you can focus entirely on your profile, focus on working on the essays, bringing out the essence of who you are, personalizing that kind of a connection, and taking it forward. A question that I get quite a bit at the start of conversations, when we sit down with individuals the first time, and of course, they know it, we know it, it's personalized, but then students can't help but ask, how or where should I apply? Or what program is good for me? Or in a way, how can I find the perfect fit? For example, when you applied for the master's, along with this RD, I'm sure that you would have considered other places as well. You might have applied to other places as well. So how do you sort of zero down, to a certain university? How do you know where a place would give you the kind of gaps or rather help you fill those gaps that you have in your profile to achieve the goals? Is there any strategy that you would advise or any kind of formula or direction, that these kids could follow?
Sure. So I'll take you through my personal process that I followed for studying, and then probably the viewers and listeners can derive their method or their process themselves. But what I had done, I went from broad to narrow, of course. It's in Xavier's in the third year you get an option to choose your major. So I had chosen marketing as my major, and it's probably one semester or two semesters, forgetting that you kind of get a chance to actually taste that subject per se and see if you like it or not. And for me, I kind of liked it instantly. So I wanted to study more about that subject. Not like I came from any marketing background or had worked anywhere before, but just from purely from an academic point of view, I wanted to learn more about marketing and I wanted to build a career later. So that was my first point of check. What do I like and where do I see myself in the future? So I saw, okay, marketing is where I see myself in the future. Let me go ahead with this. There are so many different other things, finance, operations, etc. Let's keep all that at bay, marketing. So that was number one. Second, I had to choose between, okay, so which degree should I do in order to get a better understanding of this particular discipline? There were two options in front of me at that point in time. One was MBA, the other was a MSc or the MIM program.
Right.
Now, once you have these two options, you deep dive and you research what do these two options kind of give you. Now for MBA, I realized if I want to do it abroad, I need minimum of 2 years of working, which I did not have at that point.
Right.
So automatically that MBA was eliminated. Now the other option I had was an MSc, Master in Science in a particular discipline, which is marketing. Now my next step was to understand which school will give me the best bang for my buck in terms of what I want to do. So before looking at any curriculum or any school, I took a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and noted down what are my expectations from my preferred school, whichever it would be, or preferred degree. Okay. So one of the things I remember very distinctly, I had written down, I do not want only theoretical understanding of the subject. I want practical understanding as well. Okay. Now, this kind of what does this translate into? This translates into the fact that, okay, whichever school I want to go to, they should have some sort of a internship program or a project where I can be part of and learn on the ground. So that is what it translated into. But if you see the process, when I was writing it down, it was very generic. It's only when you start thinking more, when I mean I want practical experience, this is what the school should offer.
Right.
So similarly, I've written down quite a few pointers. This is what, and this is before going to any school or curriculum. So once I had that, then the next filter was where do you want to study? Is it Europe or US? Europe and US at that point, of course, were the most preferred destinations. So I'd looking into only those two continents. Then I realized Europe is far more popular for the MSc, and America would be better for MBAs. So then automatically Europe was something that I kind of drilled down on. And within Europe, then it's a process of seeing which are the top schools in Europe that offer MSc in marketing. And in that, ISB was one of the top schools which were offering MSc in marketing. And I had about 4-5 such schools listed down. And then I went ahead and deep dive into the curriculum. Does the curriculum which is showcased on the website match that piece of paper that I have? Because that piece of paper, the person who was writing it had no such idea of which school is offering what curriculum or what education. That piece of paper was written by someone who purely wanted all the pointers and was coming from a point of view of, I want to learn as much as possible. So that was like the true sense of what I wanted, that paper.
Right.
Then when you match it, then you realize, okay, from these 4 schools, these are the 2 or 3 schools which are actually matching my requirements or coming closest to my requirement. Then you fix on that particular school, and then you go ahead with your applications. And also, very importantly, as I mentioned in the beginning, speaking to alums, speaking to counselors who have an understanding of the school, because you might not know the school too well.
Right.
So you need that guidance. before you actually go into your application process and
The
start.
website's
Yeah.
limited. I mean, at the end of
Website is limited. Yeah, website is all about words, but it's only the counselors and the alums who put the spirit and the emotions behind the words.
True.
So that's very important, because remember, you are going to be there for a year or 2 years, but most importantly, it's a very important decision in your life, which later on you might not be able to, you will not be able to overturn.
Yeah.
So it's very important. So this is the entire process that I follow.
I think this is, very, very helpful to anybody who's thinking about how to go about choosing the program. I mean, more than choosing the program, you sort of have to figure out what is it that you are looking for from a program. It's not a buffet. I mean, you have to choose from what's available. I mean, figuring it out in terms of what is it that you're looking for, how are you looking to, in a way, engage with these universities, what's important to a person, whether it's the geography, the practical experience and learning, as it was in your case, or somebody might be looking to really get a head start in terms of networking. For somebody, it might be very important that the university or the school allows them to get employment in a certain kind of a company. So in that case, what you want to do is you want to list that down as your number one priority. And the first thing you want to check when you go to the university is the employment report and see whether it's actually helping you, sort of give you opportunities to get in touch with those companies. So depending on what exactly a student would be looking for, which is something they should figure out before researching on the universities, they could then look at those aspects and pick it accordingly. So, I mean, that's a great first step. And then once they figured it out, they could look at the requirements and take it forward. Jumping again, let's say to the later stage of the application, they figured out the university, they've given the GMAT as we spoke about, and then you lightly touched upon the interview. You spoke about how many individuals feel that if you get the interview, then ho gaya, sab kaam done. But in reality, I mean, the interviews still going to have individuals who are not accepted. So what are the things, that they could do apart from, let's say, taking a few practice sessions? How could they prepare themselves better for the interview experience in that case?
So there are 3 things that you can actually do to prepare yourself better for the interview process. The first thing, which I'll quickly talk about because this is very generic, which is, of course, being more present in the moment. Do not be nervous. Again, the reason why I'm saying I'm quickly going to, because in all honesty, I was very nervous. Though I'm telling you, like these are the best practices, but when you're actually in the moment, pressure cooker situation, and this is such an important school, an important opportunity, you're bound to be nervous.
You're bound to be nervous.
But actually, those who, and this is the honest truth, that's why I'm saying this, and also telling you that I had faltered here. But the honest truth is, those who can actually keep their calm, they have a higher chance. It's a probability game. It's not a complete guarantee, right? It's a higher probability of impressing, and once you impress, there's a higher probability of you getting. So keep your calm, be present in the moment, because when you are in the moment, you think, acha, what would happen if I don't get in? What happened? This kind of messes with your entire preparation.
Yeah.
So those 2 things are very important. Now let me tell you about certain practical things that you can actually do, which I did, which helped me navigate through the process, even though I was nervous, even though I wasn't able to keep my calm as much as probably I should have. When you go to any of these interviews, these are open book interviews, in all honesty, because 60% of the questions what they're going to ask you, right? They're going to ask you why this school, they're going to ask you why this program, they're going to ask you, tell me something about yourself, which will be the first question they'll probably ask you. They're going to ask you, so after graduating from this particular school or completing this degree, what is the next step? Why do you want to do it? So 4-5 such questions very well ki ye to aana hi hai. So prepare that thoroughly. Okay. In front of the mirror, practice it with your friends, and just keep repeating the answer refining, more than repeating, refining the answers in order to keep it short and succinct. Because when someone actually asks you, tell me about yourself, there are like years of things you can tell that person. But you have to also be respectful of the time, because they're also trying to understand how brief you can be. And when they say how brief you can be, they're trying to understand how are you able to filter out priorities. So that is one thing, 60 to 70% of the question that you know of, and this is how you should practice. Now coming to the next 20, 30% of the questions, which could be out of the blue. For that, all you need to do is, you've given your CV, you've given your essays, you've given basically your story. You need to understand your story well in terms of linking everything that you have done in the form of a story. From your schooling till now, all the things that, like for example, let's say you are you're interested in a degree in finance. Okay. Now, from your schooling till now, all the actions that you have done which kind of point you towards a career in finance, note it down and have that thread prepared. Okay, so in school I took up this thing, a specialization in say marketing. What did I do after that? After that, I started reading a lot of these marketing journals, getting interested in these marketing case studies. I even interned with a company in the marketing department. Okay, what else have I done? I have helped, probably if you have a family business, I've helped my father or mother in selling XYZ products via these marketing initiatives are taken up. So the entire thread, have it properly jotted down for you, and it should be cemented in your brain so that whenever you are asked anything, you can automatically pull it out. And that is what will help you navigate through the rest of the 30% of the questions. Having a clear understanding of your story.
True. I think that brings us to, a very important point, that when you're preparing for something like an interview, there are things that you cannot control. For example, I know that, the advice which you gave initially, I mean, something that I also give a lot about, not to be nervous and not to have that anxiety, but that's easier said than done. And I mean, on most days, I'm at least someone who doesn't really get anxious, but I've had those days, when I know, and it just comes to you. You really can't do too much about it. So you have to, in a way, I think, prepare and practice and focus on the things that are within your control. And what's within your control is data, is information. Maybe writing and rehearsing all the answers for the open book kind of questions that are there, because so many of questions you already know. If you don't want to be nervous, then what you can do is you can actually reduce the amount of mental pressure you put on yourself during the process of giving the interview. So one of the ways to do that is to write down and have a lot of the content pre-prepared. I think if somebody has pre-prepared content, then they're sort of bound to go on and do really, really well at a later stage. What's your opinion on mock interviews? Because I think that mock interviews also sort of give a little bit of insight, and mock interviews probably allow individuals to get new situations. They can meet different people and put themselves in that. Even though a mock interview is not a real interview, but there's still that little bit of sense of discomfort and all of that that's attached. So they can maybe get comfortable with giving the interviews. Do you think somebody should give a lot of mock interviews, focus on few mock interviews? Is that important as well?
So I think, in my personal opinion, I think, of course, mock interviews is definitely helpful. No two ways about it. But two things on mock interviews. One, of course, it's important who you're giving the mock interview with.
Right.
Because many a times what I've seen is someone picks up their best friend and for the mock interview, and now the best friend is also, as rightly put, best friend. So they are not as critical about the performance as they should be. And secondly, if I'm giving my mock interview with my best friend, that hesitation that you have in giving an interview, because at the end of the day, when you're being interviewed, you are being judged. No two ways about it, right? And no one likes the feeling of being judged. Hence, that hesitation comes into the picture. So you have to understand the reason why people feel hesitant in an interview kind of a situation. So I know my best friend is not going to judge me. So how am I going to even simulate that kind of environment? So do not give it with someone who will not be as critical with you as they should. Second is, try to give your mock interviews with as many alums of that school as possible. That's also that's like a secret sauce here, because when I was applying to ISB, I remember I gave quite a few mock interviews, mostly with the alums.
With the alums, right?
Yeah, so I reached out to them on LinkedIn or any other platform, portal, or through friends, and I requested, could you please spare about half an hour of your time, and I would like to interview with you. And you could probably give me your 2 cents in terms of how it's going, because they have been through the process already.
Correct.
So they know very well what it kind of entails and what kind of questions will be asked.
Absolutely.
So those two are very important. Third, in terms of how many times you should give the mock interview, my personal opinion, don't give it too many times, because you will feel jaded after a point.
Confused in a way, too many opinions.
Correct, and there'll be a lot of opinions that people will give. Okay, you have not done this, that. No, just go with 3 or 4 mock interviews, and most importantly, more than the frequency of the interview, the kind of people you're interviewing with. That's more important. Correct. And try to incorporate all the feedback they are giving and keep it to that. The other thing that happens during mock interviews is, if you keep giving too many, 10, 15, 20, at times the interview also feels like a mock interview.
Right.
So you kind of lose that newness, which could be detrimental as well. So more than frequency, focus on the quality of mock interviews.
Fair enough. I think that's good advice. And I mean, really, one of the most critical points that you pointed out is who you're giving to the interview to is important. Even if it's alum also, sometimes I've seen that if the work that they're doing is substantially different, or their background is substantially different from, a person's background, then the feedback could be a little biased as well. I mean, let's say, for example, if somebody's from and I've firsthand witnessed this kind of a situation in the past, where there's an individual who was from a family business, and then he passed out and he joined his family business again, and he was interviewing somebody whose career goal was not to join the family business but rather go on and work.
So
there was a biased opinion. I was very apparent when I was, because I was observing the interview and I was also part of the whole process. So I do remember while the conversation was going on, and while the feedback post the interview was being given, it was on the sense of but okay, maybe you could say this, but maybe this isn't good reasoning. And that kind of a situation can cause an applicant to start questioning things even when they're not required, even when you don't need to question what's in front of you. So that's a really troubling situation. But yes, being careful who's taking your mock, understanding whether that person's in a technical way, you could call it qualified enough, in some way or the other, is definitely very important. I would want to touch, Adit, I mean, it won't take this very long, but you've had these dual experiences, between let's say going to ISADI and going to ISB. And I think that literally, even for some students in college itself, or people who have had, let's say, a couple of years of experience or a few years of experience, choosing between a specialized master's, like the one that you would have done at ISADI, and going for a program at ISB, or let's say another business school, even maybe abroad also, for one that requires work experience, is a dilemma that's there in people's minds. So I think you having done both of these, can give really good perspective on the differences. So if you could shed some light on how your experience at both these places were different, and help someone who may be in a dilemma between choosing between one of these two programs, just give some insights on that.
Sure. So when I was choosing SRA at that point, you have to understand that my life stage was different. At that time, I was a student. I wanted the global exposure. That was it. So when I talk about these things, you can understand what was the priority. That time, my priority was I want the global exposure. I want to meet new people. I want to meet people from different nationalities, because a lot of the things that you learn, you also learn outside of the classroom.
Right.
So for me, it was important to step out of my comfort zone. So I want to step not only out of the city, but also out of the country. I want to
Right.
live on my own.
Right.
Okay. These were the priorities at that point in time. In addition to, of course, learning something new and learning something I was increasingly interested in. That kind of pushed me towards choosing abroad over staying back in India.
Right.
And also the kind of professors that I had access to, global faculty. Okay, that was also certain things that I wanted. A very holistic global education was what I was looking for, as well as a global experience. So I moved towards, I gravitate towards going abroad. Now, when I got the taste of the education and the entire experience, more than just education, the entire experience abroad, and I came back to India, I started working, of course. And then when time came to choose my MBA institute,
Right.
that point in time, my priority was to stay in India because I wanted to work in India. Had my priority been to work abroad or settle in abroad, I would have gone for the abroad route again. But this time, my priority was to stay in India and work in India. So then I chose India. Now, within India also, now that I've tasted global education, global experience, I wanted an education system which kind of mimic that within India. Access to global faculty, global case studies, a very international way of teaching.
Right.
That is where I then gravitate towards a particular school called ISB, the School of Business, which kind of promises all that. And also, it was a 1-year program. And given that at that point in time, I was no longer a student,
Right.
I was a professional.
Yeah.
So I could not afford to spend 2 years of
2
my
years.
life again. So I was looking at a 1-year program. So in all those metrics, ISB kind of fit. So if you kind of ask me what was the main difference between the two in terms of the experience, I would say what ISB does is it very well it captures and mimics the entire system abroad, global system abroad. The only difference that I found was the proportion of international students would be lower if you're doing it anywhere from in India. If you're looking for mixing with international community per se, as compared to, of course, going out and doing it from an institute abroad, which will have a greater international crowd. That was something that I felt was the major difference. Otherwise, it was very much the same. Of course, Isade was in Barcelona, ISB was here in India. So the place will have its own charm. That's very much personal and subjective. So I'm not getting to that. But in terms of the educational experience, it was very well kind of balanced.
That's really great. And in terms of the diversity, I think you would have got more by diversity while you were at ISADE at Barcelona, whereas over here it would have been more Canadianized.
Yeah. So here's an interesting point here. So at ISADE, yes, I did get diversity in terms of nationality.
Right.
You have to understand that when I was studying at ISADE, none of us almost had any work experience, right? That is one of the reasons why we went into our
MSc program, yeah.
So there was diversity in terms of nationality. Someone came from this country, someone came from that country, and like it's an explosion of interactions across the world. Now, in ISB, though the diversity in terms of nationality was lower, the diversity in terms of coming from different walks of life was way higher. Because here there are professionals who come from professionals, there were athletes, there were artists, there were army veterans,
Very
So
nice.
you are in a classroom with so many people across age groups, across who are at different life stages, right? So the diversity there was also there, but it was a different
Immense.
kind of diversity.
Yeah.
So both had their own share of diversity, just that what kind of diversity that different.
Right. Right. I think this is so critical as an understanding. When a lot of candidates walk in or they sort of get in touch and they talk about diversity as being one of the main reasons for them wanting to go abroad, then this perspective of individuals coming from different backgrounds, from different walks of life, different stages of their life, and different industries, different domains, the kind of melting pot you can get with that kind of differences across people is also enormous. It's huge. So the point that diversity doesn't necessarily only mean nationality. At the end of the day, diversity is so much more. It's about different opinions, different thoughts. So that's really insightful, and I think for a lot of the viewers, it's a point to keep in mind. Something to just understand, relate to, and keep in mind while you're taking future decisions about where to go and how to sort of mold things over in general. Do you think, uh, because you're one of the individuals who, after doing an MSc, has done an MBA program as well, there are a lot of individuals who at an earlier stage, while going for an MSc, they think that, okay, I might as well directly go for an MBA if I have to do an MBA later on. Maybe I should work for a few years. And then there are individuals who do an MSc and then they think, oh, I've done a master's. Eight masters is a lot. How many masters will I do? Why should I do another MBA? For those who are thinking in either of these directions, do you think that doing an MSc and then maybe after a few years doing an MBA sort of gives an added advantage in any way? Or, because you've gone through it, you can, of course, share. Is it fine to have worked for a few years and then just done the MBA?
Yes, there's absolutely no two ways about it. So you can pursue 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, or as many degrees as you want.
Right.
That comes from your personal interest and inclination and your time. Since I had a very academic bent of mind, so I was more than happy to do my MBA as well. And to tell you the truth, I want to do my PhD as well later on, sometime in life.
Yes.
So it'll be a BCom, MSc, MBA, PhD. My family's
Right.
like, I'm on a hunt to keep collecting degrees, but that's how I am programmed. But anyways, you can also look at only 1 degree. Say you want to do an MBA, work for some time. That is something that I would suggest, because in an MBA classroom, it's very helpful if you come with a prior work ex for you to make sense of things. So you do one particular degree, whichever is the degree of your choice, and which you feel, and this is the important bit, gives you higher chance of employability. Okay, because after that, most probably you would want to work. So then you pursue that particular degree and you go forward.
Right.
In my case, I did my MSc because purely from the point of view of
Learning and academic.
learning
Right.
academic, and then I did my MBA purely from the point of view of enhancing my employability. So both the reasons were very different for me, but they were reasons nonetheless.
Right.
So that's the reason why I went ahead and did an MBA. Otherwise, had that not been a consideration, I wouldn't have done an MBA. It's fine.
Right. I think, having the reasons in place and remembering it's a customized solution in the end. It's a customized aspect, very personal decision is what is important. In your case, it certainly did make sense, on both the instances. And the thought should never be that, oh, everybody else is doing it, hence, let me also do it. Or they're following the path, so let me follow the path. Everybody should take out the time to sort of introspect and understand what's the right way to go forward for them, and decide accordingly, and take a little bit of help if required in terms of making that decision. I think only thinking about it also isn't good enough. Talking to people, introspecting is probably one of the most important key things to do when you're trying to navigate this whole process. That phase is really nice. Do you think professional courses are things also that sort of help with admissions? let's say if somebody does a CFA, a certain level 1 or a level 2 or a CA, is according to you, I mean, is that something that would be helpful to anybody?
So anything that signals your interest in a particular degree or particular course that you want to pursue by getting admitted into that school
Mm-hmm.
will definitely be helpful. Like the professional courses you mentioned, like for example, if I were to pick up a CA
Mm-hmm.
course, okay, and I want to pursue, say, a degree in marketing, so there's no resonance there.
There's no synergy. There's no resonance. Right.
There's no resonance
Right.
there, right?
Right.
How do I use this degree that I've toiled over, worked so hard to get, to actually convince the admission counselor why I want to do marketing? As a matter of fact, this will actually be a point of discussion.
Yeah.
Where the admission counselor says, okay, so you've done CA, which is definitely a very difficult course to actually study and pass, and now you suddenly want to do marketing. Can you just explain why? And this explain why you need to spend a considerable amount of effort and time to figure out. Right. So as long as your professional courses that you do have synergy, it works. No two ways about it. If they do not have synergy, then you have to put in extra effort to actually substantiate and justify it.
Right. That is extremely valid over there. Great. I think we had some, really nice topics to converse over and some fruitful insights for all the viewers that are there. Any closing advice, Adit, that you would want to pass on to, the people who are watching?
Sure. Firstly, once again, thank you very much, Michael, for having me. It was great talking to you as always, and great to share my life experiences. And I really hope that someone here takes it and derives some value out of it. Because like my entire experience with whatever I've done, it's not like I was a great student, but I was definitely someone who knew why I was doing what I was doing. Let's just put it that way. And because I knew that, I knew, and also I knew myself to know how much of effort I have to put.
Right.
So that is like very important. And the other thing that is actually very important for everyone here who is planning to apply or wants to get into a particular school is that in today's day and age, a school is no longer a school. It has become like a cult. Right. So if you are part of a particular school, you automatically are part of that cult of that alum, cult of a particular pedigree, and a lot of your opportunities are defined by the access that your school kind of provides you. Right. So it's very important for you to not make any decision in haste, and that is why you have people helping you out at different stages who you can reach out to. Please make sure that you avail of that option. Earlier, when I was giving my GMAT or preparing for SRA, there weren't as many. There were, yes, but there weren't as many as they are right now. So make the most of it. And also remember, like, it's a big investment on your part, both financially and time-wise.
Right.
So do not make any decision in haste. I am 100% sure that each and every one who is actually trying to apply for any school, be it even the dream school that a lot of people think, mera to hoga hi nahi. Which is not true. You have the potential and you can definitely get in. But some people do and some don't. Why? Because those who do, they know two things. One, how to introspect. And second, how to present that introspection.
Right.
You do those two things and you are set. No two ways about it. So please make sure that that kind of effort and discipline you have inculcated, and definitely things will work out in your favor. No two ways.
Great. I think that's some lovely closing advice, in terms of taking the time out to introspect, and of course, using whatever you've learned from that introspection and incorporating it into, taking things forward, and also enjoying the process. in some way or the other. I would just want to emphasize that finally, this is also an experience in itself. I think personally, I've seen a lot of individuals transform and learn about themselves, about so much in life through the process of the applications itself. So it's not that getting into B school and the B school process itself is only about figuring things out. This is also about figuring things out. So rather than taking pressure and thinking of this as one massive examination, think of this as a opportunity for you to find out what you want to do in life, an opportunity for you to figure things out so much better. People are normally, people can spend a lifetime trying to figure things out. And over here, you have a well designed application process that forces you in a way, to put in the time, put in the effort, talk to people, do whatever hard work is required to come out finally with a solution that, okay, this is where I want to be, this is where I am, and this is how I can basically get there. You are forced to make that connection. And you take that entire application process in the right spirit. And I'll definitely resonate with the other part that Adrit said, that there are individuals out there who can help you, who can be reached out to give advice, to give guidance. Of course, don't take any decisions in haste, but do remember that this is a massive decision that is going to be taken. So take the time out, do the research, find the right reasons, and of course, take it forward. That's really, really wonderful insights. So once again, Adit, thanks so much for joining in today. And like always, it's been a pleasure to connect and discuss. And I myself also could say I've learned a few things as well. So with that, I think we can draw to a close, and we will go ahead accordingly. So have a wonderful rest of Saturday and a wonderful Sunday, the rest of the weekend, and take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.